Fitness and health follow a very simple, very basic rule, that is, use it or lose it. If you're sitting on your desk all day long and you never stretch, chances are you're not going to be really flexible. I would not expect you to be able to get off your desk and instantly into a pike position or into a front split, for instance. And the same goes for strength as well as cardio, meaning that if you want to live a long, healthy, but mostly a qualitative life, you have to prioritize these 3 key performance indicators. With cardio being at the very top, probably the most important thing you can do when it comes to longevity in general, followed by flexibility, which decreases by about 1% every single year we get older after the age of 30, which is a pretty big deal. And last but definitely not least, we need to be working on our strength, especially in our lower extremities, because those lead to the most injuries. Not to mention that the weaker your legs become, the less likely you are to do cardio. The less likely you are to do cardio, the more likely it is you die of a heart attack, which in the end basically becomes the Ouroboros of old age. A cycle of getting injured, doing less work, leading to more injuries, doing even less work, and so on and so forth. However, with that said, there are some very tiny, very small things that you can adjust in your own life. So today we will be going through one single exercise per joint so you can keep them healthy, limber, strong, and loose, and increase your quality of life as you age. So if you're ready, let's get right into it. Now, starting with our wrists, we're gonna get into a quadrupedal position and we're gonna start putting more and more pressure on the joint while going through tiny, tiny rotations. Now, we have a little bit of a benefit of extra shoulder mobility as well, but now we are focusing on our wrists. We're gonna do the same thing with our hands on the back side, as well as the front side, and only put on as much pressure as you can without having any pain. In between, you can just grab both of your hands and go through some tiny, tiny, very low impact rotations just to let loose a little bit. Moving up to our elbows, which is a little bit easier because they're not rotational joints, meaning they only work in one plane. We can once again start in a quadrupedal position and start bending at the elbows, putting more and more emphasis on strengthening our triceps. Instead of flaring our arms outwards when pushing up, we want to put them as closely to our upper body as we can to have more triceps dominance. If you are strong enough to raise your knees, then of course you can go for classic triceps dominant push-ups. The same goes for the diamond push-ups, which are very triceps dominant and connect the shoulder, the chest, and the arm musculature. Or you can directly move on to dips if you have even more strength and even more control over your muscles and over your joints. Just keep in mind that for all of these exercises, we want to go through the longest possible range of motion so we do not lose that flexibility part while we're working on coordination and strength together. Moving us to our shoulders, which we're going to use some stick assistance for, because that is a piece of equipment that probably everyone has at home. I use a broomstick at home. If you want to add a bigger strength aspect to the exercise, you can use a resistance band, so you have that covered too. With our chosen exercise being complete rotations in our rotator cuff with our arms completely extended. And believe it or not, when it comes to this exercise, there is a lot you can do wrong, because the goal here is not just going through the rotations, but we also want to use our scapular positioning to our own advantage. Meaning when we move forward from here, we want to pull our shoulder blades apart as much as we can, going into abduction, moving our shoulder blades all the way up into scapular elevation, back into scapular adduction, pulling our shoulder blades together, and then into scapular depression once we're all the way back. So now we are moving our shoulder blades actively and connecting all the musculature around our rotator cuff with all the muscles that connect around our shoulder blades. And this way we are using a lot of strength, a lot of control, and working on our flexibility. We are opening up our chest. We have very nice rotational mobility in our rotator cuff. And if you do this correctly, you will notice that just a handful of repetitions already feel like you are working with weights. Moving us down to our spine, which, while it is not a joint, it is still very important to be working on its mobility, especially if you're someone who has a more sedentary lifestyle. With the chosen exercise, of course, being the switch between cow, which is a spinal extension, turning our hands outwards, extending our arms, extending our spine, and bringing our head back, as well as switching into spinal flexion, hands inwards, lengthening our arms, our back and our shoulders, pulling in our stomach and letting our head hang loose while shifting our hips into an anterior pelvic tilt. Inhalation during the extension phase, as well as exhalation during the spinal flexion phase. And you're also going to notice we have a little bit of wrist and shoulder mobility included in this exercise, which is also a nice bonus to have. And over time, your range of motion when it comes to switching between extension and flexion is going to become longer and longer. And this exercise not only super beneficial, but feels absolutely amazing to start the day out with, and to get a nice limber and loose start into your morning routine. Moving us to our hip joints, and by far my favorite mobility exercise is the switch into a 90-90 sitting position from one side up and down to the other side. Now this exercise is not only great for your hips, but also for your knees and your ankles. Let's consider that a bonus before we move on to those joints. In this one single exercise, we are going through internal hip rotation, external hip rotation, as well as strengthening our hip flexors when reversing the movement. Not to mention that we have full ankle extension and full ankle flexion, and switching it up. Since this is an asymmetrical exercise or an asymmetrical movement pattern, we have a lot more mind-muscle connection as well, and so much core inclusion and activation in this exercise that chances are you're probably gonna have a little bit of DOMS if you've never worked this exercise before around your hip flexors and your lower abdominals, while still giving you the bonus of immense flexibility and immense coordination. Now, if you do not have the necessary strength or flexibility to get into a deep squat or resting squat position, lean with your back against the wall all the way. Bring both feet flat on the ground and combine the internal and external rotation from here. Internal, external. You can even roll over your toes and push your heel down before you stand those legs up and switch into the other direction. If you don't even have the mobility to do it in a seated position with the wall behind you as assistance, then you can lay down for now and combine internal and external hip rotations from here until your mobility becomes better and you can get into a deep squat position. Now, when it comes to our knees, our chosen exercise will be lunges, which also add a lot of ankle flexion, but also a lot of hip flexor stretch, with the true goal being able to do elevated lunges, which brings our knee into a complete bend and complete extension, and lengthening our hip flexors on the other side. Very long range of motion, nice added stretch on the side that we are not working. So basically another very effective exercise that combines strength with flexibility and endurance, as well as coordination due to its unilateral movement pattern. Moving us to our last joint for today, our ankles, where we need to be able to do two very important things. Go into complete ankle flexion with our knees passing our toes, so we have enough flexibility there, and going into complete ankle extension with your foot and leg in one singular line on the floor. Our chosen exercise being very easy to replicate. We can lean next to a wall or whatever we have, and we're just gonna switch between sitting back into ankle extension and pushing our knee forward into ankle flexion. You don't need to put a lot of pressure on it. You can go through this exercise in a very relaxed manner, lengthening your tibialis and stretching the anterior chain, as well as pushing forward, lengthening your Achilles and stretching your posterior chain. And if you want to add to this exercise, you can get up, extend your leg, and move from here forward as much as you can, diagonally, getting into this nice flexion, and then pushing back into as much extension as you can, really grabbing the ground with your toes to keep that foot as flat as possible. This is also going to strengthen your posterior chain, as well as strengthen your anterior chain when flexing your tibialis to move forward. Now, having gone through all the joints, one single very short tip when it comes to cardio: the easiest, most sustainable, and most beneficial form of cardio that you can do over a very long period of time is walking. You don't need to go jogging, you don't need to go cycling, you don't need to go swimming. All you need to do is walk every single day. If you can make it half an hour. That is the most sustainable thing you can do, and that is really the easiest to replicate. If you can add this to all the exercises we just did, then you're basically taking care of 95% of all the problems that people are working through as they are aging. And there you have it. Not only will this make you the fittest centenarian in the retirement home, but it'll also help you have a very nice quality of life as you're getting older. If you like the video and subscribe. Captain Cairo, peace out.